Hello, 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 everybody. It's Tuesday. And it is Tough Love Tuesday with your personal journey with food. And I am Tracy Cromwell, and I'm really happy to be with you tonight. And just wanting to talk with you about, I'd say, a pretty serious topic. It was really hard for me tonight to pick this a topic because everything that's going on in our world right now. And I was going to talk about prediabetes tonight, and I just felt like maybe I wanted to talk about something else. And I thought maybe a different topic around listening. How can we better listen to each other and have better relationships with each other through listening? And, when I work with people, work with clients, and then also in my book with Your Personal Journey with Food, Inger and I, we talk about what we call our life radar. And that life radar, involves many aspects of our life. If I was to read this list off, it's home environment, it's physical activity, health, joy, spirituality, relationships, finances, creativity, social life, career, education, and cooking. And those are, just some of the areas that really impact us in our lives. And then in all of those, if I was to look at that, listening and effective listening is just so important. It's really important in our careers. It's really important for our relationships. Listening helps us, with joy and creativity. It's involved with everything. And so that's why I went ahead and I decided to move up this topic for tonight. I also, and I keep forgetting to say this, but while I'm streaming live here on Facebook, I'm also streaming live on YouTube. So I do have a YouTube channel, which I keep forgetting to talk about. But if you'd rather watch the show there, or you want to go back and watch it later, it is streaming live on YouTube and right now as we speak as well. And also for those who are listening on the podcast, this recording does convert into a podcast later. I am recording live. So as with all live experiences, you never know what's going to happen. It could be weird noises. Some cat could show up. But anyway, if you are listening on the podcast, I am recording live. So I think those are my main announcements. So yes, YouTube, podcast note, and also just want to talk about listening. And I think listening is an art that we have, lost. And it's very challenging too at the same time. Most of us can think that we're really good listeners, and we'd like to say, yeah, of course, we're great listeners. But as we'll find out that, actually there's a lot of work we can do to improve our listening skills. And I went to several websites to put this program together, and I want to make sure I note it. But Forbes.com, Psychology Today, Psych Mechanics, and Wright State University. So is where I've gotten a lot of this data. But so I think with that assistance, we're going to have a great evening, and we'll be able to become even better listeners than we are now. And again, if we can form really great listening habits, I know that we can better connect with those that we love, those that we work with, everybody. So, there was a study of over 8,000 employees from various job backgrounds, and most of them all thought they were above average and they were more effective listeners than their coworkers. So all of them thought they were better listeners than their coworkers. But there's a study that only about 25% of people have the listening skills. And so, not everybody can be above average in listening skills. So it's just something for us to really think about. How good are we at listening? I know when I'm working with my clients and everything, I'm very focused in. I'm a very good listener. But in my personal life, it can be hard, to step back and be a really good listener. So the odds really aren't in our favor that we're good listeners. So, there's the misconceptions of that. And so, although we can't agree that we should be really good listeners and we should have a strong skill that we need to improve on, it's really not something we all talk about much anymore. And we don't talk about it a lot. But being a great listener is really important because we are social creatures. I mean, we're human beings and we socialize. And, therefore, communications really needs to be one of our most important attributes, right? And how we can effectively communicate. How can we effectively listen? So why it matters. There was a study done, and this is career oriented, but we can go ahead and modify that to our personal lives. But there was a study of managers and employees in a high stress hospital setting. And the study explained that 40% of the variance in communication, was causing effectiveness and leadership. I hope I said that right. A study of managers and employees in a high-stress hospital setting found that listening explained 40% of the variance in effective leadership. So, if we sit back and we think, who do we believe to be a very good leader, an effective leader in your life? And if you think about who that person is, do you find that they're a very good listener? So that could be a teacher, politician, a boss, a parent, a coach. Would you consider them, whoever you see as that leader, to be an effective listener and a very good listener? And usually what they're finding is those that are very strong leaders are very good listeners as well. Listening helps foster bonds with other people. It fosters trust. It creates unity in a team, if we're listening. And it also helps to demonstrate that you have concern for someone else, concern for others and their well-being by being able to listen and make that commitment to listen to somebody that you lead. And then also it helps those, say, in an employee situation, in a relationship situation, that their commitment to you is then raised as well because they feel heard, right? So leadership and listening go hand in hand. And I think too, we could say that effective listening also reduces conflict. And, that the effectiveness of listening tends to reduce the frequency and interpersonal conflict because it's more likely that the dispute can be resolved by coming to a win-win situation. So I remember when I was, in the construction industry and I was negotiating contracts. That's what I did before I became a health coach and a trainer, but I was in residential construction and I would negotiate pretty big contracts. And in that negotiation, there was always a lot of listening on both sides, with the hope that through that listening of the other side's needs, the other side's thoughts and concerns, we could come up with a very wonderful win-win scenario for both the builder and for the contractor, right? So again, when we listen, we can come up with, again, that feeling that you're heard. It can also, if we listen to somebody else and we listen to their side of the story, right? We can help somebody not become defensive. If we put someone in a situation where they don't feel heard and they can't speak, then they can become even, I don't want to say, the word passion. I love passion for somebody's point of view, but they can also become, unmoving then if they feel like they can't speak. So, on the other hand, if you feel as though your concerns aren't being taken into account, you'll probably feel more likely, if you're not being heard, you can become defensive as well. If you're not being heard, how does that make you feel when someone's not listening to you, right? But if you do feel heard, and maybe even someone that you don't agree with, you don't have the same opinion, you feel like you can work towards middle ground, right? And so I think now in our society today, that's become really difficult because we do have social media. We have, and I'll bring that up a little bit more as I go on. But again, if we listen, we can reduce a great deal of conflict between each other, right? So what is effective listening? All right. So this is where too, I would love it if you want to go ahead and comment. Feel free to put in the comments and hopefully I'll be able to see them. But, what do you think, effective listening is? And it's basically effective listening is actively absorbing the information while showing the one speaking that you're listening and you're engaged, and then providing feedback that shows them that they've been heard. So in other words, effective listeners show speakers, the one speaking, that they have been heard and understood. And so a lot of times that can be, the speaker may make a statement and you can say, hey, I understand, did I understand you correctly? Is this what you meant? And there's also the concept that if your mind wanders, because it's very hard sometimes to keep this brain focused on the one speaking. But if, say, your mind wanders, that happens, but you say, hey, I apologize, my mind wandered for a moment. Or could you repeat that? I want to make sure that I'm listening and you're being heard. And so if you do wander, it's okay. That person will respect the fact that you said, hey, I just need you to repeat that so that I comprehend what you're saying. And they also state that one of the best things that we can do for another person is to show them that their communication is working and that their message is being delivered effectively, right? So it's so you can tell when someone's not listening to you and their mind is wandering. But when, we are social creatures, right? And we thrive on relationships. And so again, that best thing we can do is make sure that people understand that they're being heard. Have you ever left a conversation where, you were more confused, than before, and you were the speaker and you just felt that you weren't heard? But then think of another time when you felt like you were heard. What was the difference between those two situations? How did you feel you were being heard? And then also, if you were a listener, how did you interact with that other person, to make them feel like they're being listened to, right? Another thing that I found in my research was, our body language is really important, sometimes even more than what we're, how do I want to say it? Our body language is more important than anything. Okay. So when someone is speaking to you, we can turn our body towards them. We can make sure we have eye contact with them, a nod, yes, and really be focused. Sometimes I have a challenge because it's, they stated not to cross our arms and we should not cross our legs, but I get really comfortable. And when I'm thinking, I end up crossing my arms, and I don't mean that I'm being closed off, but I guess that is a sign of being closed off. So I can see how somebody too, especially in a situation where someone really needs to be heard, and it's a very difficult, maybe challenging conversation where we want to make sure we leave our arms down and we nod and we have eye contact with the person. And, that's just something that's really worth considering and paying attention to as we're trying to listen to somebody. Another good one is put down the phone, put down the cell phone. Okay. We think that we can be on the phone and listening to somebody at the same time, but the brain only knows how to focus really on one thing at a time. And so another way to be a very effective listener is to, bring down the distractions. Maybe you need to look something up for the conversation. That's something different. But if someone's wanting to have a conversation, we want to be in conversation with another person. Let's put down our phone. Let's try and stay really focused on that person. This is another great point. Sometimes I talk a lot about mindful eating. Okay, put the phone down, turn off the TV. So effective listening is like being mindful and being present, and staying focused. Right. And I love it. Jamie made a comment. Not formulating your own answer while the other person is speaking. Very true. And Jamia, you can do the show with me because that is going to be another point I'm going to be bringing up. So thank you. But another thing that's recommended is keeping an open mind. And I want to say that's a lot of what Jamia is saying here too, is effective listening means that we aren't judging the other person as well. We're not judging them, and we aren't criticizing them for what they're telling us, right? And then also, you are not listening to respond. You're listening to learn. It's challenging to not want to finish what someone is saying, to think we know how they're going to finish their sentence, right? So we have to really, hold back and let them finish what they're saying, right? And we don't want to jump to those conclusions either, where we think we know what they're going to say. So a good way to help with that is think about questions you may want to ask them. Okay, right? What do we want to ask them, as opposed to trying to answer and think we know what they're going to say? And then it's what's called being a sentence grubber. So I know sometimes, we want to feel like we're involved with the conversation and we want to participate with the conversation. And so we jump in, and we finish other people's sentences. So to be an effective listener, we want to really refrain that part of our desire to jump in and participate right away. And so we don't want to be that person. Okay. So we want to go ahead, let them finish their statements. And sometimes what I'll do too is if there's something I want to add later, I will make a note. Hopefully, if I have a piece of paper, I can write a quick note down that I could come back later and discuss that, something that whoever I'm talking to, whatever their statement was that made me want to jump in. So go ahead and see if you can refrain from doing that. A really good, I love this idea too, was it was suggested that we picture their words. We picture them. We picture what they're trying to say, and we paint a picture of what it is. And that will help your mind really, do its best to correlate with them and what they're saying, right? So when you're listening to long stretches of a story, concentrate and see if you can remember even their keywords and their phrases, and then the brain will do the rest of the work and help you even remember better what they're saying to you, right? And I think too, what I said earlier is if your thoughts start to wander and you miss something, go ahead and just say, "Oh, hang on, can you repeat that? I want to make sure I'm hearing you. I want to make sure I'm really focused with you. So, you said this, right? Or, hey, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?" And there's no problem doing something like that. And that really shows them that you care and you're really wanting to hear what they have to say. Someone's not going to mind that type of an interruption. Here's another good one. We don't want to impose our solutions. unless they're asked for. So that's another tough one. We want to step in and we want to solve it with our great ideas. But when we're listening to someone talk about a problem, let's refrain from suggestions. Let's go ahead and just let them have that space to express what they're saying, okay? And leave room for them. And I know we all want to help, and even me as a coach, it's one thing I have to make sure I don't do it all the time unless we're at that point of the conversation where I am needing to step in and give ideas. But, if you're bursting, I love this. If you're bursting with a fantastic idea, ask your conversation partner, would you like my thoughts? So go ahead and ask them if they would like your thoughts first. And again, it's so hard. I know it's really tough. But jumped in and were in that position and you interrupted them, to say, oh, it's okay. Zip. Keep talking. Tell them to keep talking, and you want to hear what they have to say. Okay. So when we interrupt what we're really saying to somebody is that, we don't think we're saying this, but what we're saying and how they can interpret this is that, if I'm interrupting you, then I'm more important than you are. Or what I have to say is more important or more interesting or more accurate or more relevant. What you're saying doesn't really matter. I don't have time for this conversation. And then this is a contest of who knows more, and I'm going to win. So that's the way things can be incorporated and interpreted. So again, although, we may not intend to communicate any of those things, but when we interrupt, that's how someone can feel. And again, I am not perfect at this at all. And I catch myself interrupting. And especially when I'm with my friends or, with my family, I have to really, really still pay attention, make sure I'm not jumping in on somebody else's conversation. One really great thing too is just we learn to ask questions, and this can be great, asking the questions, finding out more information about it, in a non-judgmental way, that we really care and we want to learn more about this person and what they're wanting to say to us. And it really helps someone know that you're invested in what they're saying. So, a great way too, sometimes we can rethink about how we may ask those questions too. And it'd be a great thing to do some research on, but asking questions that keep the person who's speaking in a position of where they don't feel they're on the defensive. So questions like, why would you do that? That can make someone feel defensive, right? Or how could you have thought that? Whereas maybe, or how did you come to that thought? Or what led you to that? I think has a different feel, right? And that's too where something I notice in text messages, in Facebook posts, when someone says, why would you do that? Maybe they didn't mean it to sound that way, right? Like, why would you do that? They might just meant it that way. Why did you do that? Trying to think, but maybe saying, hey, what brought you to do that? Or what, we can do better at asking those questions, I think, so that we don't put someone on the defensive. Okay. And again, our questions can be innocent, but I think it's just something we can improve on as to how we ask them and what we want to think about how that other person might be feeling. Another thing that's very good for us, and I think I touched on it too already a little bit. It's we want to let someone finish their story, okay, before we jump in and want to join in it. That, oh my gosh, that happened to me, and then we're off and running, and they're still in the middle of their thought, right? So if we can create that patience, and let them finish that experience and that discussion first, and then we can have the opportunity to join in later. And again, if if you interrupt and you find out you've interrupted and you figured it out, say, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it's not about me. It's about you right now. People don't mind that so much. Okay. If we go ahead and we just step back and say, hey, I interrupted. And my clients, they'll know too. Sometimes I get excited. I'll jump in. I'm like, nope, it's not about me. This is about you. So, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get us off track. Let's get back to what you were talking about. And then, as well as, I think right now too, there's just so much going on in the world. We have COVID-19. We have a lot of things going on politically. We have, shootings that have been happening. And I think people really, in my opinion, need some space to speak and to talk. And even if we have different opinions. And so if we can give that open space, and sometimes we don't even have to say anything. Someone just wants to speak and just be willing to listen. Is significant, right? We just allow someone the space, and then at the same time, we make sure we don't give unsolicited advice. And again, it's the concept of allowing someone to speak, and if someone wants the advice, allow them to ask, right? And if it's very hard for you to not want to give advice, we can go ahead and say, hey, ask the person speaking, have you thought about what you want to do next? Or have you thought about what your next step is? And then let them go ahead and answer that question. Okay. So have you thought about what your next step is? And that gives them a chance to say, yeah, I think I have thought about that. Maybe I'll do this. Or they'll say, no, I have no idea what my next step is. And they'll say, hey, do you have any ideas? So it just lets them have that opportunity, right, to go ahead and ask for the advice. Because I think, again, we're social creatures and we want to help and we want to give advice, but sometimes we just need to leave space. And then, if we do have something we would like to assist with, make sure that they're even open, right, at that moment, right? So our goal is to listen. Our goal is to listen and to develop a deeper bond with this person, okay? And working with them through whatever they're talking about. I really wanted to talk about this Tuesday, just because I just feel, and I'm speaking to myself when I say this, is that if we can become really effective listeners and be okay listening before we speak, and we can learn how to communicate again and create even better than we ever had before. Just think of what can happen, right? Think of what can happen in our world. So, in conclusion, so I'm almost done here, but being an active listener, our goal is to get as much information as possible in a time-efficient manner and leave the conversation in better terms. And to, again, listen. So making sure through body language, we have created a comfortable environment, being mindful of the way we react to phrases and ideas, especially those that we may not agree with. Sometimes that's hard for me. I know it's hard for everybody. Okay. So being mindful of, again, how we react to phrases and ideas, especially those that we may not agree with. And then asking questions that encourage the speaker to share more, and then refraining, from giving unsolicited advice. And so I absolutely loved talking about this tonight, and I'm really happy, that you're listening tonight. And my hope is that we can take our new listening skills into our conversations for the rest of the evening, for tomorrow, for the next day, and even as we work together, um, even as we work to through social media and how we respond or what do we post, right? And then yeah, just really really work on our listening skills. um, I do remember, I want to say just one thing that happened to me in an old job was I remember wanting so bad. I felt like I had to raise an alert, something was not working well and I had to say something. And so I interrupted a conversation because my opinion was more important. And I could have handled it better. But what happened was then I was told to shut up. And so I never got my message out. They never heard it. It just went south. And so anyway, when we are communicating, if we can practice this listening, not be so much in a rush to get our point of view out, I think that so much, things can be so much better for all of us. And I think we'll enjoy being together and having these great conversations, being able to have difficult conversations, those ones that sometimes we don't want to have. So again, I'm going to repeat it one more time. Let's just set a great environment for comfortable conversation through body language. That was, posture, eye contact, try not to close ourselves off. Leaning towards the person, looking at the person speaking, being mindful again of the way we react to phrases and ideas, especially those that we may not agree with, and then asking questions that encourage the speaker to share more, and then refrain from unsolicited advice. Okay, so that is all I had for tonight. But thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. And I loved this topic. And I know for me, I have work to do on my listening skills. I think maybe we always will. And I wish everybody a phenomenal Tuesday evening. Okay, and here's to listening, using our ears. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.